morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am grateful to Luxembourg for Finance and to Matthias in particular for the opportunity to speak to you this morning on the latest regulatory developments stemming from the Commission's ambitious review of the ELTIF regulation. This review is important in many ways, but above all, it signals the European Commission's and the EU legislators' willingness to pursue a key milestone towards CMU. That is, a viable pan-European framework of choice for alternative asset managers looking to invest in private assets. Born in 2015 and over the course of 8 years, interest in the EU's European Long-Term Investment Fund, ELTIF in short, has struggled significantly. Several of the original regulations provisions were seen as too restrictive in terms of managers' portfolio asset choices, in terms of investor eligibility requirements, and lastly, also in terms of tax considerations. In the meantime, other AIF structured, each with their own national flavor, have proven to be better alternatives, offering managers and their clients alike the much sought-after flexibility that the original ELTIF did not allow, despite the promise of a pan-EU passport. The latest amendments to the so-called Level 1 regulation, applicable as of the 10th of January 2024, are substantial and promise to unlock a lot of new interest expressed already in the significant pickup of authorization requests since the ELTIF review was first announced in 2020. My name is Federico Cupelli. I am Deputy Director for Regulatory Policy at EFAMA, the European Fund and Asset Management Association, where, together with my small team, we have covered all stages of the ELTIF 2.0 review. I will structure the rest of my intervention today to address 3 key points, and namely, what are the latest regulatory developments, including intelligence around ESMA's RTSs. The second point will look at market appetite for the adoption of the revised ELTIF product. And finally, the third point will ask the question, is ELTIF really headed in the right direction? So starting with point 1, what is the latest regulatory intelligence coming from ESMA and the Commission? Assuming that most will be familiar with the main changes ushered in by the amended Level 1 regulation, I care to update you on the latest concerning the awaited Level 2 implementing measures in the form of draft regulatory technical standards, RTSs, which have been entrusted to ESMA. While these were finalized and published on the 19th of December, setting out key terms regarding redemption, the functioning of the matching mechanism for liquidity purposes, and cost disclosures, their adoption by the Commission is, however, still pending. This legal uncertainty has led national supervisors to adopt different approaches to authorizing new ELTIFs. The Commission is currently considering amendments to a few of the draft RTS provisions. In particular, the requirement for a default 12-month notice period. Please know that the Commission's considerations and amendments will be published shortly. Regarding the aforementioned notice period specifically, ESMA has suggested that all ELTIFs must have a 12-month notice period, which can be reduced only where the fund increases the percentage of liquid assets in its portfolio and sets a gate based on this amount. To have a notice period of 6 months or less, the fund's portfolio must therefore comprise at least 40% in liquid assets. Our industry believes that a default 12-month notice period is excessive and makes ELTIFs less marketable to both distributors and investors. Moreover, requiring a minimum 40% holding of liquid assets for notice periods of less than 6 months will deprive investors of a meaningful exposure to private assets and thus also drag performance. These considerations have been shared with the Commission, and we are expecting the draft RTSs to be changed on this very crucial point. With the Commission's amendments to the ESMA draft RTSs to soon be made publicly available, their release is imminent, I'm told, ESMA will then have 6 weeks to consider these, following which the Council and the Parliament will have 3 months to object to the text, and this period can be extended by another 3 months. We therefore expect the text to be agreed between ESMA and the Commission before the summer, and for the text to be formally adopted by Q4 this year, following a non-objection by a new European Parliament and the Council. Coming now to my second point. What market appetite is there for adoption? At the start of the review, I recall counting barely 17 ELTIFs in the official ESMA public register. This number today stands at just over 100. In conversations with EFAMA's members, as well as in the financial press, there is certainly a renewed interest towards the product. This leads established fund houses to consider launching more funds and new actors to enter the market by attempting a first launch. Nevertheless, while there definitely is a renewed appetite to launch and to be invested in a revised ELTIF structure, there are a few short-term risks worth mentioning here. Among these is the fact that a number of ELTIFs have already been launched under the new ELTIF 2.0 regime, despite it being incomplete and in the absence of final level 2 rules. National regulators have followed, in other words, different approaches. Some have stated that they will use the draft RTSs as a guideline with some adjustments and modifications here and there, while other authorities require fund rules to be reviewed following the enactment of the Level 2 rules later this year. A third way is possible, with one authority stating its intention to not authorize open-ended ELTIFs until the Level 2 rules are finalized. It is also not known whether a grandfathering period will be built into the Level 2 rules. To ensure that the momentum generated by the revamping of the ELTIF regime can be maintained, it is critical that legal certainty can be achieved as to the content of the Level 2 rules as soon as possible. Equally critical, however, is also ensuring that the Level 2 support the spirit, the rationale of the Level 1 reform. Coming now to point 3. Is ELTIF heading in the right direction? When looking at our industry's asks at the outset of the review and the final result achieved in the amended ELTIF regulation, one can definitely conclude that the latest reform has made the ELTIF envelope far friendlier for managers and their clients alike. More specifically, the investment requirements have become more permissive in many ways, for example, through the broadening of the scope of eligible assets, as well as for the opportunity allowing managers to rely more on master feeder structures and on fund of funds. On the liability side, the requirements previously limiting investors' entry, for instance, the 10% individual exposure limit and the €10,000 minimum investment amount, have been removed, opening the structure up to a considerable investor demand, especially on the retail end. The reform has therefore undoubtedly moved in the right direction. In my modest view, the true test, however, will be to gauge the retail investor take-up of the ELTIF as this will ultimately spell its long-term success. Whilst on the asset portfolio side, the revised rules expand the possibility for managers to invest up to 45% in UCITS-eligible assets to meet retail clients' liquidity preferences. The success of the ELTIF brand will also crucially depend on distribution at the point of sale with the implementation of the MiFID suitability test, as well, undoubtedly, as on a greater degree of financial literacy among future retail investors, beckoning at least some very basic understanding of what private assets are and how they function. In sum, the ELTIF 2.0 reform is characterizable, therefore, as a success, on paper at least, and notwithstanding the pending level 2 measures to be adopted later this year. The democratization of private assets through ELTIFs, however, largely remains to be tested and will certainly require courage for managers looking into this space. I wish to thank this audience for their kind attention, and again to Luxembourg for Finance for their kind invitation. I hope you have found this short address informative, and I will now gladly move you on to the next session addressing the valuation conundrum. Have a great day, everyone, and a good rest of the week.